Hey, welcome, land back.
Land back, Grand Rising.
Yes, land back, Grand Rising. Good morning. Come into the room. Our lovely hammers, our lovely colonized people, come into the room. We're going to get ready. We're reading the Young Lord's Reader, Part 2. It's the second time we're getting into this. Come into the room. When you come into the room, hashtag share. When you shared it, share it in a group. I want to see it shared in like, how many groups should people be sharing this in, Jorley?
Too many.
Too many groups. Yes, it should be too many. You're like, oh man, I'm so done sharing this in groups. Share this in your mama's Facebook Messenger. Share this on your best friend.
Instagram, all the links you got, all the social media you got.
Yes, put it everywhere. We want to make sure that we get this information on the Young Lords back to all. Land back, Malcolm. We want to make sure we get all this information out to all of our colonized people, especially us Boricuas. We want to make sure Boricuas know that we have a revolutionary history and they can continue it in Black Hammer. Land back, Alex. Thank you for sharing. On YouTube, yes, we on YouTube, y'all. Go to the YouTube link too and watch it there. Yes. Yeah, I'm excited today so we get into this chapter. Land back, Stevie. Nice to see you.
Yes, you see me you see me with the hair. People are gonna think I'm a catfish, but I'm not. Flyer, I have like no glasses, my afro, and today I'm like, surprise.
No, for real, no, you looking hot. You looking hot. I see, like I'm gonna need that haircut soon. You know, like I had a look going on, but now it's becoming this like weird mohawk thing. I don't even know what it is. I gotta get it fixed.
It's the humidity, Cheif. It's the humidity.
All right, laying back. So make sure you keep sharing. We want to make sure we get to like more, at least get 10 more viewers on this as we come into this morning. Land back, Hava. Nice to see you. Land back. And if you share into a group, make sure you let people know to watch the live every Sunday. We're here every Sunday, 11 Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. So, so I'm Cheif Oju, and my lovely co-host here is
Jorley Flores. I'm Comrade Jorley. I'm excited to be here, y'all. I am an Afro-Latina, straight from the 787, San Juan, Puerto Rico, representing. And I'm really, really excited to, dig into this amazing book that shows us about unity and, coming together collectively to keep fighting these colonizers and to obviously maintain the history that a lot of people are not aware of or are trying to erase. So I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, exactly. We have to keep fighting these colonizers. We have a history of it on the island of Borinquen, the indigenous name of Puerto Rico. And we're continuing that legacy here at Black Hammer. Black Hammer is an anti-colonial, revolutionary mass organization. We're here to build collective power to overcome white power, colonialism, capitalism, imperialism, all symptomatic offspring. And that's what we're doing. We're creating unity. Land back, Alex. We're creating unity among all colonized people because we all got the same boot on our neck, right? It's like no matter like where we are as a colonized nation, whether it's in Vietnam, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Angola, Mozambique, we all got the same neck stomp right here, right? And we have to get that foot off our necks. And so that's why we're organizing. Land back Ina, land back Sia, Sien, and yeah. So yeah, let's get started. I want to make sure too that we remember that we are also getting funds for Hammer City, right? So Jordan, you want to talk about Hammer City real quick?
Yes, so it's really important to keep supporting. Please don't forget to donate. CashApp, Venmo at BuildHammerCity, GoFundMe.com/BuildHammerCity will give you more information of what we're all about. we're out here making outreach. We're out here on the streets passing mass, giving information on who we are, what we do. And it's all about collectively coming together as a community to fight these colonizers, to support ourselves, to build a community for ourselves, for the people. So please, guys, we need all the support that we need. We need donations. We need new people. And we need to keep spreading the word on what Hammer City is all about.
Yes. So if you got some money right now, $5, $10 to give to Hammer City, I want to see a donation right now. Let's see if we can get that land back through. Land back. If you have a donation right now, I want to see 5. Ooh, Cheif, I shared in 26 groups. You could give $26 for the 26 groups that I put in. Right? I put in 26 groups. Give me some $26. I want to see that. Land back, Ina. Land back.
Land back.
All right. Oh, Lay shared it in 10 groups. Yes. Tell me how many groups you shared. I want to see donations that match these group numbers. All right. We'll get started when we see one donation. I want to see at least one donation come in. It's all right. Yeah. Thank you for that $5. That's everything.
Anything will make the change. It could be $1, $2. Anything will make the change for us. So don't vamos a donar, mi gente.
Sí.
Donate.
And like that's the thing about Black Hammer. All of our resources come from colonized people. We build this. Oh, thank you, Landback Alex, for that $20. And hey. Awesome. You got 26 for IS 26 groups. Thank you. Yeah, no, but this is all our resources. This is all colonized people's resources. We don't do grants. We don't do no government like money. We don't do none of that. This all comes from our resources because we know we can do it ourselves. We know we're our own leaders. So that's why we do this, and that's why we're trying to build Hammer City. So we can show that we are our own leaders, and we're going to have these all over the world. You don't even know yet. All right, so but yeah, let's get started.
Yes.
Yeah, like so we had to read chapter 3, so y'all should have been reading chapter 3. It was a long chapter. It's a really long chapter, but worth it. Tons of information in there, and like tons of like the origins of the party. Right, it was really focused on how the party got started, and some of the first activities they did, and things like that. And so yeah, let's like get into our first read that back. Yeah. So we have to read that back. So there's a quote in the book that you're like ready to like talk about, you know, put it in the comments so that we can talk about it later. But this part was from the interview with Chacha Jimenez. And Chacha Jimenez was the founder of the Young Lords. He was the Chicago street like guy who was ready to like just take his gang and like do something else with it, right? And I wanted to get into this because this is one thing I kept seeing a pattern. I don't know if you probably saw this pattern. I kept seeing this pattern. Maybe y'all saw it, but this is like this love of like poor white people that's been going on. So Chacha says, I think our organization, just by the people, just by the content, just by being Puerto Rican, you have to understand it's a class struggle because we have light-skinned people like myself. I'm very light. And we have dark-skinned people. We have red. We have yellow. We have all kinds of people, a rainbow of people. And this is why we can easily understand it's common sense to us that this is a class struggle. I can't relate to Black people hating white people and Puerto Ricans getting hated by anybody, you know. And people can't relate to that, you know. We look to see which is our enemy, which is our communist enemy. And we just see that the pigs are the bodyguards of the capitalist pigs that are oppressing and exploiting our people. We look to see that this octopus, the United States, has been sucking, right? Has been sucking all the resources from Puerto Rico. And we see who our enemy is. We see that the United States is our enemy, and we look out for allies. You know, we look at Cuba, we look at Mao, we look at all these other countries that liberated themselves from the monsters, right? So, like, I feel like, so Chacha, who started all this whole party, like, he understands that, like, the U.S. colonial power is the enemy, right? The United States is sucking and leeching everything around the world. And then he gets into this like rainbow of people, and like right before this, he's talking about how like poor whites are really important. Going back to Libra for sharing. Yeah, he gets into like why these like poor whites are so important, and like that's one thing like I feel like in Chicago it's been hard like organizing sometimes is because like Fred Hampton like revolutionary salute to Fred Hampton, a true revolutionary. But like one thing that we have to like reflect on is like this inclusion of poor whites into anti-capitalist and anti-colonial work. Like it just didn't work. It didn't work. Like even later, like someone says, like, where were the poor whites when Fred Hampton was murdered in Chicago? Like they were nowhere to be seen. And like in Chicago, they started this group called the Young Patriots. And like when Fred Hampton got the Black Panthers and the Young Lords together, he was like, let's bring in the Young Patriots, like this poor whites group, who was made up of like Appalachian whites that migrated to Chicago in the 50s. And I don't know, I think they were still kind of racist. I don't know, they're still racist today. They still be up in the city today. I've been called nigga plenty of times, right? With all these people who be coming from Appalachia. So I think like it's just important to see like, you know, that we can still unite and still see the United Snakes as a common enemy without including poor whites, because it has to be our leadership, right?
And it makes me think about back in Puerto Rico, you know, when colonizers came in, and when I mean colonizers, we had a couple of colonizers come to the island, but precisely United Snakes coming into Puerto Rico, it reminds me how, you know, they separated the blacks, the people from the mountains, the Jibaros. And it's really important to see this division because Cha talks about, you know, him being light-skinned and not experiencing what black folks experience, which it's completely understandable. We see this mistreatment in the island as well. We see how dark-skinned Puerto Ricans went through more discrimination, more oppression based on the color of the skin and their features. But we also have to think about the people from the mountains who weren't as dark, who were labor workers, who still experienced some of it to an extent, but still managed to experience the effects on colonization. But at the end of the day, we need to recognize that, you know, him being born and raised in Puerto Rico, you know, partly raised in Puerto Rico, we see racism and discrimination manifest into different forms. We do this. I don't know if you're familiar with Roberto Clemente.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So Roberto Clemente, you know, we see how he leaves the island to, you know, pursue his baseball career. And we see how we read about him experiencing racism, how like the white baseball players went to eat inside of a restaurant while the black players stayed in the buses eating. And he himself said, like, I never experienced that in the island until I came here to United States. And I forgot about being Puerto Rican for a second. I was looked down as a black individual. So it's crazy. And people get this misconception that in Puerto Rico, we don't see this racism and discrimination. But again, we do see it, but it's manifested into a different form. So this is really important for us to identify as well.
Yeah, that's so true. And I like experienced that as like a black Puerto Rican in Chicago, where like, because colonialism, it works so differently in so many places. So like in the island, right, like people are being treated differently. And at the same time, they try to like create this like mestizo idea, like everyone just has all the blood, like everyone has European, African, and indigenous blood, and we're all just like this unique Puerto Rican race. But like when I'm in Chicago, like they like, I'm black, I'm blackly black, like I'm black. There's nothing to it. There's nothing else to it. There's no like what else you got mixed up in there. Right. And so because of that, they're gonna treat me accordingly. They're gonna treat me like I'm an African person, which I am, right? But we have to like remember that it's being colonized. It's not like this crayon box like color thing, right? And that like if we unite around being like colonized, then we can like overcome colonialism, which makes us have those divisions, you know. But yeah, I hear with the Jibaro part, like my grandfather's family is from Ajuntas.
Okay.
And so Ajuntas is like they're pretty pale mixed with indigenous. Like it's you know, but they're like they were like coffee people. Like all they did was work on coffee. You know, that was all they did. Like it's I think like one thing that I wonder if his family ever like thought about was like, you know, are we indigenous or you know, or are we white? You know, I wonder. I never met him. I just know about this history. And I wonder like how that manifested on the island.
That's another conversation, because in Puerto Rico, we still have a problem when it comes to colorism. You know, we see the division. We see how we have white Puerto Ricans who say, "Oh, but I have like African roots." But I'm like, okay, but let's own our privilege in the sense that yes, you are Latino, you get discriminated, but at the end of the day, we need to think about Black and brown bodies in the island who go through, like I said before, oppression and racism in a different way based on the color of their skin. And this is a huge issue today, because a lot of, you know, white Latinx in general don't recognize, you know, their experience versus the experience of a Black, brown, indigenous body. You know, we see this division throughout, not only in Puerto Rico, but we see this across, you know, United States and globally. And sometimes we just need to step back and educate ourselves, because in the end of the day, you know, in the book talks about being called a spick or being called the N-word, you know, but we just have to center ourselves and think about how we view these mistreatment through other people's eyes. In this case, you know, Black and brown individuals from the diaspora who leave Puerto Rico to United States, and they were probably enduring their own, you know, engagement in Puerto Rico, but when it comes to United States, it's a complete different story. This is where like identity, we see a lot of identity issues today. We see a lot of, you know, people who are second, third generations in New York City or in the diaspora who are like, am I indigenous? Am I Black? Oh, but they say I'm light skinned, so I don't know. So, and I resonate because when I first came to New York, a lot of people from both, you know, Black and white spectrums would tell me, "Oh, but you're not Black, you're not brown, you're Latina," and I'm like, and I had to take a step back, and I'm like, but no, because when I'm back home, I'm called a negra, a negrita, una prieta, you know. But and this is where a lot of people don't see the difference between nationality, race, and ethnicity, and we also have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, and like something that someone commented too that I think like connects to this is that colonialism also makes us think that like that's also the main issue, right? And like, you know, because like with racism, of course, like there's gonna be people's attitudes. There's gonna be people denying stuff and giving us stuff based off of our skin color and features, right? But the reason that they do that in the first place is so that they have a system in place to steal stuff from us, right? And like that's what we have to make sure people remember, right? Like colonialism is about stealing our shit. Like they want to steal our stuff, right? And so whatever they got to do to make us weaker and more disunited in order to steal our stuff is what they're gonna do, right? So like my hope is for like the island to really be able to unite around being colonized, right? Of course, there's like that's how you go up to someone. It's like, are you a colonized person or are you a colonizer? If they have trouble answering the question, they probably a colonizer. Colonized people will answer that in 2 seconds. I'm colonized, right? Right? It shouldn't take that long.
And that's on trauma. That's on generational trauma.
Yeah. If they can't figure it out, then yeah.
And we're like, we were talking earlier, and I was mentioning to you before we went live how like I, you know, coming to the United States, and I've had people question my identity. I was triggered because I would take time answering, but I would take time because I was thinking about the trauma I endured, and I didn't know how to internalize that without having to explain myself too much, because at the end of the day, people will never understand everyone has their own struggles, you know. And like I was telling before, I was born into the crisis, you know. I was born into, you know, a single mom who owned a small business, who after the depression on 2006, 2008, things went downhill for my family. And, you know, for me, when I'm being, you know, questioned about my identity and my roots, I sometimes have to hold myself back, because it's like, where do I have to begin? Do I begin with the history of Puerto Rico? Do I begin with me telling you what I've experienced both in Puerto Rico and in New York for you to understand why I identify the way I identify? Because like we mentioned before, if, you know, we've experienced it and we know about it, that's all that matters. We need people that can relate, who have been in our positions, who who know the feeling of what it is to be colonized or coming from a colonized place. In this case, Puerto Rico is the last colony standing. I don't like the word territory because at the end of the day, we are a property of the United States snakes.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting the fact that me being an American, birthrighted citizen, I'm treated as a second-class citizen. And this is not me using my voice. This is me representing the voice of the entire island who is being mistreated, who are not looked as Americans. And in the book, we see how they talk about our people being sent to war.
Yeah.
And we don't recognize that either. You know, our people died. You know, our people pay taxes till this day. You know, and we're still not recognized. We still are fighting colonialism. We're fighting these colonizers who keep taking from us for our people.
Yeah, exactly. And people, and like actually talk about citizenship real quick. Like people always be like, like people born on the island, they have like U.S. citizenship. And you don't want to know why that is? It's because they gave that citizenship in 1917, in March 1917, and in May 1917, what they did? They drafted all those Puerto Ricans that they just gave citizenship to fight in World War I on the front lines. That's how messed up colonialism is. You know what I mean? They want to say like, oh, we're giving you these things, that like we're giving you some abstract rights. Like they talk about that in this chapter too, about abstract rights versus material reality, right? Like, oh, we're gonna give you like this right to like an access to some things in the U.S. because we're gonna give you the citizenship, right? But the material reality was that they needed their bodies. They're like, we need your bodies to protect our own colonial interests. Right, and so let's take you Puerto Ricans and literally put you on the front lines to get shot up, so like colonialism, you know, it runs like so deep, and like it just gets deeper and deeper, even beyond like color, right? Like and beyond beyond some of those like abstract rights, because sometimes when we get like caught up in the abstract rights, we start fighting for reforms, right? We're like, well, like you know, like in Puerto Rico. Like you can't vote for president if you're on the island. If you're off the island, you can vote for president. So like, you know, like if let's say my mom who was born on the island, if she went back to the island, she couldn't vote. But she came back here, she could.
It's funny because a lot of people, you know, I myself have my own mixed feelings with voting because it's like, yes, I'm here. I own my privilege of being here to an extent where I'm able to vote, but it's crazy because I'm like, but what I vote, but my people can't vote for presidential. That's completely effed up. You know, what's the point of us being Americans if we can't even vote for presidentials? What's the point to an extent that we don't have even basic full representation in Congress and Senate? You know, so.
That's because they don't want your vote, because they don't want your vote. They want your body. They want your land. That's what they do. They don't want your vote. They don't care about it. They're like, we want your land. And so whatever we can do to keep you appeased enough, to keep you like happy enough until we take all your resources, that's all that matters. You know, like they like, you know, they don't want you to be American. They don't want that access, right? And we shouldn't want to be American, right? That's the parasite. That's the thing that's sucking our bodies, our land, right? So let's like, you know, we don't want to be that, right? I sure as hell don't want to be that, right? So like, they really just want our bodies. They want our lives and our land, and like we gotta stop that. And that's what like the young lords are doing. Like the young lords are really fighting to end this like leech, to end this like parasite sucking at us. Yeah, I think like one thing that they did was they really, you know, tried to make sure that they were working with the people, right? Like the Chicago Young Lords, like Talipa had to read that back comment that they were giving gifts, right? They were like giving out things to the community, and like they thought that was fine, but they realized it wasn't enough, right? They're like, okay, like, we actually have to like not just give stuff to people, but work with the people at the same time, right? And I think that's a lot of like orgs fall into this trap, right? Where you become a charity, right? And you're like, here at Black Hammer, we've been giving out thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces of PPE, right? But we just haven't been giving out PPE. It's not like we're the free PPE organization. You know, we are a revolutionary mass organization. We've been giving out PPE and winning people to the revolution, right? Winning people to Hammer City. Like that's the point of it, right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I like at this point, like, Chief, we gotta choose between two rapists who locked up black folks. Exactly. Right. Like that's not the point. Like, we're not supposed to be choosing, like, these presidents and choosing these people to represent us. It's about us. We are the leadership. And that goes with, like, our fourth principle of unity, right? Like, we believe the colonized proletariat are the only true proletariat, and we believe only through our leadership can white power, capitalism, imperialism, and colonialism be smashed, right? And all systematic offspring be smashed, right? So we got to be our own leaders and, like, come up with our own thing, right? They acting like this election is, like, all it, and we'll get to it later. There's actually a good read that back about elections later in the chapter. But yeah, no, we really gotta, we gotta fight this colonial system, like, to its core. We gotta fight to its core. If we get stuck in, like, the symptoms, sometimes we get lost. We can't get lost in the symptoms, which is what, like, lots of these organizations like Black Lives Matter and stuff do. They get lost in the symptoms. And no, we go into the core. We go into the heart of this. We're going to the heart of this. That's what Black Hammer is. So join Black Hammer. Share that link. blackhammer.org/join. We are international. Come help us get to the core. Help us defeat the heart. Help us stab the heart. I was trying to watch that Vampires in the Bronx movie on Netflix. It made me think. I'm ready to stake that heart. Get to the core. Yeah, let's do it.
It's crazy because I was just fact checking myself quickly. Something that I wanted to mention is the fact that nationalists such as Pedro Albizu Campos, who fought in war himself, he speaks about what motivated him into becoming who he was and what sparked him to become, one of the many things that sparked him to become a nationalist leader for us was the fact that when he himself enlisted himself to World War I, he experienced and endured a lot of racism, and it shifted his perspective. Like, he knew the effects of colonialism before he was enlisted in Puerto Rico, but when he actually left for war and he saw the treatment that Puerto Ricans were getting, he was like, nah, like, I'm not about this. Hold up. And it's really upsetting because, we read about how till date, people who are considered nationalists or are opposed against the oppressors are considered more dangerous than murderers. And it's like, okay, so I'm a dangerous individual because I'm a revolucionaria, because I see the reality and the needs of my people. And I see the fact that since the beginning that you guys colonized us, and this is when you read War Against All Puerto Ricans, they talk about how in New York Times, these colonizers stated, we're taking everything from Puerto Rico. We're not letting them go. These are actual words coming from colonizers. And to me, this is upsetting because we've had history in our eyes for so many years. Until this day, we have people talking about what Puerto Rico deserves and what Puerto Rico doesn't deserve. I get triggered when I hear people say, oh, Puerto Rico should become state. No, tell me why. No, because look at us now. We're Americans and we're treated not as Americans. We're not treated as equals. We don't get the help that we need. Till this day, we're seeing as animals. We're as lazy people. And how are you calling us lazy if we're not even allowed to produce, if we're not able to control our own produce, what we grow? We saw the history of sugar in the island, how it became domino sugar eventually. Oh, but people don't like recognizing that, and it's for me, and something that was really interesting in this book was when we read about Operation Bootstrap.
Yeah.
And its effect, and people need to recognize that most of these events taking place in history till this day, it has affected the people from Puerto Rico and from the diaspora itself as well.
Yeah, no, for real. Like, if we, like, later in the chapter, like in the speech from Juan Gonzalez, who was the Minister of Defense of the Young Lords Party, he talks about like Operation Bootstrap and how the island, the U.S. tried to use the island really just for sugar first, right? And like they wanted to make sure that they were producing enough sugar, Domino sugar, like Jordan just said, that sugar you love for your coffee and your cake. Domino sugar has its roots in Puerto Rican colonialism or colonization of Puerto Rico. And basically they said, you know what, we're not making enough money with this sugar, right? They're like, Cuba makes us more sugar. Like, Puerto Rico's only making 500,000 tons of sugar a year compared to like a few million out of like Cuba. And so they're like, this is not profitable anymore. Like, we stole this land, but it's not making us the money we want. So they made it into a military base and they made it into an industry. So this Operation Bootstrap was to really like industrialize the island and like pretty much make everyone work in factories instead of like earth farmer agricultural plantation. And that's what made a lot of people leave because then all these factory jobs are also in the U.S. So like, if I could only work a factory job, let me go work on the mainland, and where I think I'm going to be able to make more money. But that was a trick. That wasn't the case, right? And like this like industrialization of the island has had major like negative effects, right? And
today as well, like we currently have an act, it's Act 20 and 22, where basically colonizers coming to Puerto Rico, and to give you a perfect example, what they do is they, let's say, pay a certain amount of tax. So let's say I'm, hypothetically, I'm a colonizer, what we call a gringo. I'm a gringa coming into Puerto Rico, and what I do is I'm going to pay the government, like, let's say $50,000, and I can live in Puerto Rico without paying taxes since I already paid that amount. And it's, it's crazy because what about the locals who pay actual taxes? What about the fact that Puerto Rico's minimum wage till this day is $7.25? And, people try to debate, but, that should be enough. No, it's not enough, because we're giving back. We're paying all this money in taxes. We have the Jones Act. We have the Foreigners Act still implemented in Puerto Rico. We're not allowed to barter with anybody who's not the United States. We're still in control. So how are we supposed to elevate the locals if the locals don't have a voice to even control their own produce, their own lands?
Yes. No, exactly. Right. And we have to give that voice to colonized people and give that power back to colonized people so we can control our land, lives, labor, and resources. And so before we get into any other Read That Backs, let's get into some more donations. If you are watching this right now, you're hearing about like what they did to the island, right? Like you had this beautiful island that was, La Isla Encantada, right? It's like, right. And they made it, into basically a incubator for, U.S. profit, right? They took the sugar, they put factories on, they're like killing our people with these factories. So we have to build Hammer City. We have to have a place where we're not being killed by the environmental impacts of these like horrible factories. And so donate CashApp.
And donate, because at the end of the day, let's recognize the fact that Puerto Rico stands for rich port.
Yes.
Port, brothers and sisters. And this is why I always stand by calling her Boriquen, because that's her name. People like to talk, but I'm like, but do you know what Puerto Rico actually translates in English too? You feel me? We're still targeted. We're still out here fighting for our freedom and for our rights. So please, guys, donate so we can keep building awareness and keep building a sense of community out here.
Yes, for real. And like share again. This is another moment for you to share. #shared when you shared it again. Said it last week and say it again. Share it once more, even if you already shared it once. I don't care. Share it again. All right, because this is important political education, right? Like we're right now we're hearing from Comrade Jorley, who is from the actual island right now, right? And it's like talking to us about what colonialism means on that island, right? And like we're hearing always firsthand what it means to be colonized, right? So this is important political education, not for just Black Hammer members, but for all of our people. So make sure that you're sharing, make sure that you're telling your family and friends about it. If you think, oh man, like I don't know if my auntie gonna get this, like I don't know if my cuz like understands what we're talking about, just share it with them. They understand, they colonize.
Period.
Yeah, right? Like, we understand we're colonized. We know what's going on. So share it with your family and friends. Recruit your family and friends. All right. Yeah, I got family now up in this organization. Yes, recruit your family and friends. And so and then yeah, also make sure you go to GoFundMe.com/BuildHammerCity. Like, give us a comment of why you're donating. Like, tell us why you want to build Hammer City. And so we can so the people can see. All right. Land back, sir. Land back.
Land back.
All right. So yeah. So let's get into another read that back. One thing that people were kind of sharing about was kind of like the work of the Young Lords Party. Like, I saw that Lay put something about Attica, right? And there was like. And also there was them fighting against, let's say, oppression in prison, right? It's you know what I mean? Like, they were trying to make sure that the incarcerated comrades and colonized brothers and sisters were being taken care of while under the hardest conditions that colonialism can put people in, right?
Wow.
But one thing that they did also in the very beginning, the Young Lords in New York specifically, right, was this garbage offensive, right? And they said the best thing to hook into was garbage, because garbage is visible and everybody sees it. It's there, So we started out with this thing, well, we're going to clean up the street. This brought the college people and the street people together, because when street people saw college people pushing brooms and getting dirty, that blew their minds. It also got us out of our shyness. When we began, people said, well, what are you doing with those berets? And what are you doing with those buttons? And what does all power to the people mean? And things like that. The bolder ones in our group would get out there and yell to people, and everybody else would jump with shock. It was frightening, man, to go on the street and to talk up to some strangers and just start rapping and give them a leaflet. That's frightening shit. And we just forced ourselves to do it. And it got to a thing where nobody wanted to be the one who didn't talk that day because everybody else would criticize you. Mm-hmm. I love that. It kind of goes back to a couple read that backs a couple people shared. Like, for real, like, I love how like they saw that, hey, garbage is something that everyone sees. This is something that people, need to like deal with. Basically, the Young Lords in New York, they're like, garbage don't get picked up in the hood, right? Like, they barely come here. They come here every so often. And I know you're in New York, New York, you know about this. I don't get it because Chicago got alleys, so our garbage is not on the street. But in New York, that garbage be out on the front of the street. That is nuts to me.
Hello, I walk past Broadway on Brooklyn all the time, and it's dirty. And I'm like, when are they gonna come and clean the streets of Brooklyn?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know the whole thing, like, to have all the garbage out there, like, especially in the summer, right? Like, Young Lords was like getting together in July, so that garbage had to be smelling like ooh. And so they're like, you know what? Like, we're tired of this. So those first like Young Lords like put the garbage in the middle of the street first. And so that when sanitation came to pick it up, they're like, whoa, look at this giant pile of garbage in the street. We can't even go down the street. What's this big pile of garbage? And they have to clean it up. But then I think they realized maybe we shouldn't just be putting garbage in the middle of the street and leaving it there. Maybe we should like clean it up. and so like they got together and got the college students together with each other, with the people, regular people from the street, and they were cleaning up. I loved it. I loved how they like have this, right? And that they show that we care about a community. We are going to make sure that it's a community that we can breathe in, right? Like, it's so hard to be like in the community where like you want to like get through it every day, but like literally like the dirt and the dust is like you can't breathe, and you really can't breathe from the factories, and like it's just nice that they decided to clean up one more thing to make our people breathe better. And then they didn't just do that; they talked to them, right? And that's something like the Chicago Young Lords and New York Young Lords that they were learning. Like, we can't just do stuff and not talk to people. We have to do it and talk to the people. We have to do it and meet them. And I love it. They got to the point where like they said that if I didn't talk that day, like it was awkward. Like, you didn't want to be the one that didn't talk to people. Right. Like, that's the kind of culture we should have. Like, that's the kind of, I want a culture. I want like a Puerto Rican culture, like where we don't just like talk about like pan sobao and pan de agua and like cafecito. We always just like, oh yeah, like oh yeah, like the gigantes, and just like only just talking about that. I want a culture where we say, you know what, part of our culture is talking to our people to make sure that they are okay. Part of our culture is like cleaning up our community. Part of our culture is fighting against white power. I want that to be our culture, right? And so when people think of Puerto Ricans, they think of fighting against white power. When they think of Puerto Ricans, they think about fighting a colonialism, right? And I want that for like all colonized people. And like, yeah, like I read that back from Taliba, like when you work politically and you get more support from the community, right? Like when you get the people together, you get support from them, right? You don't just look like an anti-poverty program, which is what the young girls talk about a lot. Like we're not no nonprofit, you know, we are a revolution organization organizing and getting the support of the masses, which is what we've been doing. The people love Hammer City. You think that when we go up to people and say, hey, we're building a city with no whites, no corona, they're like, oh, how dare you? They don't know, nobody's saying, how dare you? Like, I don't know if you had that experience, or like, I know no Congress people I talk to get upset about Hammer City.
Yeah. And that's what it makes me think about, how, like, going back to what you just said now about the fact that when we need people having conversations about what the effects, what matters now. You know, it's cute to talk about the culture, the pan sobao, the bomba, the arroz con pollo, the mofongo, you know, but we need to talk about, you know, the bigger picture, you know, and it's the fact that we live in a world where we're still fighting colonialism. We're still trying to be heard. And in Puerto Rico, we have the phrase, y echamos pa'lante. And it's because we're not going to sit down looking cute and waiting for something to happen. Like, change comes within us. Change comes us in our own voices and paying that forward to our people. And by people, I mean people in the island and people in the diaspora, period.
Yes, because we are one people. Like that was one thing that like the young lords were talking about. They're like, a lot of times they were like, oh, we have to make sure we take care of the people on the island and take care of the people on the mainland. I was like, it's one people just separated, right? Like that's what colonialism does. It's just like we're all one people just separated. That's why when we say Africans in Black Hammer, we're talking about Africans. I am African. I ain't never set foot on the African continent, but I am African. Right? I am a dispersed people. I am of a people separated by colonialism.
And to also consider the fact that, like, slaves were brought to Puerto Rico. You know, slaves were released in Loíza. And people don't recognize, people need to also understand that why do you think we were so beautiful with this melanin and all these features is because we have Africa running through our bloods. Like, we see Africa in our music. And bomba was a form of dance as a form of expression during slavery in Puerto Rico. It was our only way of liberating ourselves and like liberating everything that we were feeling because of our oppressors.
And didn't they use bomba to plan slave rebellions too, right?
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you know, people need to recognize, because, you know, I'm someone through my activism, I like dancing bomba, whether it's at a, you know, demonstration, whether it's like by uniting with other people and doing our thing to promote awareness. And a lot of people say, oh, but like, you know, bomba is a performance. No, it's not. No, it's not, because that's my way of liberating my anger. That's my way of connecting with my ancestors and manifesting not only my pain, but the pain of my ancestors. Period.
Yeah, no, because it's us actually planning to get back our material reality, to get back our land, to get back our lives. And I just saw that Taliba comment, like the video, share it. You know, liking the video and sharing the video is also what helps our colonized people see this. That's how it shows up, like it shows up to them on our social media platforms, right? So please like, share. If you see it on the YouTube, like and share the YouTube link as well. We want to make sure that we, you know, are accessing our colonized brothers and sisters. So please share with them. This ain't just for you. If you're watching, it just ain't for you. It's for everybody.
Everyone.
I know you like hearing it, but other people got to hear it too. So keep sharing it for real. I think, I really unite with what you said about, like, you know, like a lot of this culture is it's not just for culture's sake. It's for, like, it's our liberation, right? It's us using our culture to create a culture in which there is no white power colonialism, right? It has to be a tool. Culture has to be a tool. It just can't be something we just live with every day. It's got to be something we use.
And I definitely unite with you, brother, because it makes me resonate with the fact that a lot of like public school, the public system in Puerto Rico is, whack. Let's just put it like that. And for instance, we don't, at least me, and talking for other comrades down in the island, like we see how our own history is being taken away from our schools. And this is because obviously the people who run our education system are pro statehood. They have that colonizing mind, and this is why I always try to. I can't stress this enough, and I unite with what you said earlier. Like, this is not just for us; this is for our future generations.
Yes.
For our future generations that are coming, that are not fully aware of the reality, because it's been erased in the island. It's been erased through history, period, because they don't want to recognize the truth. They want to see. Yeah, we see how people who are nationalists, to give you a perfect example with Pedro Albizu Campos, when Nelson Dennis, what motivated him to write War Against All Puerto Ricans was the fact that when he went to Harvard himself to practice law, he went to the library. And when we think about a college library, we think about millions of books being provided to us. But in this case, he didn't find a single trace of Pedro Albizu Campos in Harvard. And he thought to himself, well, if I'm going to talk about Pedro Albizu Campos, I need to talk about the fact why most of Puerto Rican history has been erased from our history books. And let me tell you why. Let me start with the root from the problem and why Albizu and a lot of these topics and conversations are being erased. Like, what is the main problem? And it's colonizers trying to control our education, trying to control what we need to know and what we do not need to know, which is completely up.
For real. Because especially like the U.S. wanted to like take that out. Like the United States would definitely want to take out Pedro Albizu Campos, like they did in real life, and they murder him. But of course, they want to murder him in our like minds and our history books, because he was leading like a leader against U.S. colonialism, and like in a time where everyone could see it. He was in a time where television existed. He was saying no to U.S. colonialism, right? And like a real blanket, blunt one, where throughout the United States, people saw Puerto Ricans like these are people that people live with every day. So to see that, so for other colonized people to see that contradiction right in their face at the same time as the Black Panthers, at the same time as the Brown Berets, right? Like that just. It undermines colonial power, right? And so it makes sense that they were erasing him. And again, another salute to Pedro Albizu Campos. If you didn't catch it last time, like we talked about the last book chat, the U.S. like murdered him through like radiation experiment. Like what? It's just like the sickest thing, and like this is such a sick place. So that's why I don't want to be associated with no America. Like, that's Pedro Albizu Campos for everybody. So yeah, if you don't know how Pedro Albizu Campos looks like, that is him, true revolutionary, really trying to organize the people, and really like just a hero that so many Puerto Ricans look up to. Even in Chicago, where they tried to put a statue of him in Humboldt Park. So Humboldt Park is like the Boricua neighborhood here in Chicago. And they try to put a statue of him in the park, and they actually stopped them from doing it because they called him a terrorist. And I'm like, really? Like, barely anyone already know about Pedro Albizu Campos. And so when people saw the statue, they'd be like, who is that? Right? But before they can even do that, they said, no, he's a terrorist. Like, what?
Well, we see this with other nationalists as Lolita Lebron and Filiberto, who were arrested, traced by the FBI, who were basically considered like most wanted. But why? Like, this is where like it frustrates me. Like, why? Because these people are actually taking action against like what's wrong, everything that's wrong with the United States, everything that's wrong with post-colonialism.
Yeah.
And it goes back to how they speak about in the book about the term gang.
Yeah.
And how people view the word gang. Like, people associate the word gang with being like, criminals, animals, people who bring trouble. But it's like, no.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know. Like, I'd rather be called a gang than a neo-colonial sellout. I'd rather be called a gangster than a president. I'd rather be called a gangster than senator. A gangster any other day before all these other words, all these other colonizer words, all these other colonizers' representation. You want to be represented by the Senate? I want to be represented by the gang. that's what we about too in Black Hammer. We are represented by the poor, working, colonized people, right? That's who represents us. So the gang represents us, right? The sex workers represent us, right? That's who our representatives are. That's what I want to be called, gang, right? Yeah, right? For real. And again, the young lords, like, I think this was like the part of their demise, right? Like that was part of like their split, was because they couldn't truly unite with the poor working class colonized people. They wanted to unite just with workers, right? Just workers. And because they just want to unite with just workers, that contradiction started off because they kept saying, yeah, we weren't no gang. Like even in this chapter, again, they say in the newspaper, like, we weren't no gang, right? Or they talk about their comrade Gloria, who said like, oh, she didn't do bad for a junior high school dropout. I'm like, don't talk about poor working class colonized people like this. Like, what? Like, of course you're saluting them, but don't say like, not bad for a junior high school dropout. Like, what? No, that's disdain for our poor working class colonized brothers and sisters. What we do is we have them as our leadership because we are our own leadership. There you go. And I think that's why also you learn in this chapter, like when they talk about 2 years, like in 2 years of struggle here, when they talk about how they restructured the party later and how when they restructured it, they separated the org into a bunch of classes. I think that was kind of weird. Like I was like, they basically made like a lumpen section where it was like the poor, like, you know, like the sex workers, the addicts, right? Like they put them in one. Then they put the workers in another, right? And then they put the women in another, and then one of the other ones was the community one. Like they literally separated the community work into its own section of the party, which makes no sense. The whole party should be a community party because it has to be of the people and for the people, right? So it's weird how you would separate it, and I think that separation had its roots in that class contradiction, right? Because like I think what happened was there was a lot of college students in here obsessed with working with workers, right? Which comes out of like that like white leftist like labor communism history, like Ku Klux communist history, where like they're like, we just gotta work with workers, and once workers are free, everyone's free. It's like, no, we're not born workers, we're born colonized, right? We're born colonized. Like no one's like, oh, look at this little worker. No, our culture isn't work. Our culture is of the places that we're from and born and where our blood and our land is, you know, like that's who we are. We're not workers. And we're the loot. Like that's what our commander chief said. Like we're not workers. We're the loot. We're workers stolen, right? Like what are you talking about? Like the materials for that white worker are me and my people and my land. Like that's how they work through me and like materially me and my land, right? So I think that's what that when you talk about like that gang and like how they were like using that word and kind of being like a little like pushing it away. It's like. Like that contradiction blew up into the organization and basically made them a workers' party that got them away from the people. You know, by the time they disbanded, they were like putting each other on house arrest and not even talking to people. Like, you know, that contradiction blows up to that, and so we got to stop that in its tracks. Like, if we see that, we got to stop that. We can't have disdain for poor working class colonized people.
Nope.
You know, like I'm gonna squash that anytime I see that. You know, like I don't want you talking about like, oh well, how come they didn't do better? They could have pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, like Operation Bootstrap, right? That means you're talking like the colonizer, right? Just like how the United States had Operation Bootstrap. If you talk about why these people didn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps, you sound like a colonizer now, right? So no disdain for our poor working class brothers and sisters, right? And like. Yeah, and like just remember that we're the true proletariat. You know, the white working class it's the white whipping class. They ain't never been the true proletariat. They ain't gonna be our leaders. Let them go. Let them go. Let them go and fight the other side of white power and let them do this and crumble.
And it's crazy. I'm as we're going through this conversation, I'm making so many personal connections. I remember one time. I'm in Old San Juan. I'm at a bar with my friends, and this white man approaches me, and I start talking to him, conversation, whatever. He tells me that he's in the military, he's in the army, and he starts bringing terms as Operation Bootstrap, all these terms that we see through history, and he's like, I'm really impressed because I see how, tourism and all these events help shape, Puerto Rico. And I'm a Capricorn, y'all. Like Capricorn moon. I don't have a filter. I'm not gonna disrespect anyone. You're gonna feel some type of way because I'm just gonna bring out the facts.
Mm-hmm.
And with this conversation, he flipped the switch and he started integrating the fact that this is why Puerto Rico should become a state. And I'm like, but did you know that a lot of people lost their jobs? Did you know that, most of these people have to come to America, which were discriminated, were divided into these classes groups because they couldn't produce, they couldn't work in Puerto Rico. They were growers, they were agriculturers. Their economy, their system was broken. So you're telling me that because of these effects that we should become statehood, and it's like, no, people need to see the reality and effects of the poor people, the people that have been working for themselves, working for their families to produce for themselves, and even that was taken away from us. And like you said, I agree, like we were born colonized. We were born like with this idea, and this is why, we see through history how they call us animals, because when people think about Puerto Ricans, they think about us being a weakness, not being uneducated, being not able to fight for ourselves, that we need the help of the United States. No, sir.
Yeah.
They're not letting us do our thing. They're not letting us do what we're supposed to do and fight for our own land and our own people. How are we supposed to do that if all our resources are being taken away?
Yeah, no, exactly. Like if people are getting poorer and suffering more and experiencing more violence, it doesn't do them any better to bring them closer to the parasite. Why would we connect ourselves more and more to the parasite, to the United Snakes, thinking that that's what's going to save us and get us free, right? Like that's not the connection. Like the connection we have to have is to ourselves and to the colonized masses. That's the connection we have to work, because we won't be able to alleviate any of the suffering we have until we are freeing our own selves from this parasite. And like, yeah, go ahead.
And one of the effects is like people like mentioning all these effects, but it's like, but do you see, if we're talking about realistically all the help that we've been receiving, why is the economy of Puerto Rico still not structured? Because we see corruption in both sides. We see corruption in the Puerto Rican government and the United States government, period. And that's how I ended my conversation. If you say all these things are great, promoted by like United Snakes, why are we still on the bottom of the list? Why have we not been prioritized if we are Americans?
Yeah, no, because they're not prioritizing us as people. They're prioritizing the land, right? Exactly. They want the land and resources. And like I like Zanzi had a really good read that back, that the people, we get our strength and power from them, right? That's how we move forward. We move forward with the people. We move forward with us as their leaders, and while learning from them at the same time, right? And I think that actually goes with the last one of the last read that backs that we have, that has to do with like separating ourselves from the parasite, right? And it's from that speech that Juan Gonzalez did. He was the Minister of Defense of the Young Lords Party. And he said here on page 59, if y'all are with me, he says that we are building a political party to involve our people in political activities. Elections don't involve you in political activity. Like the government treats you like a fool. They herd you into voting booths once every 4 years to elect one or another oppressor. And they tell you that this is democracy. And every 4 years, you elect one slate of lying politicians who come back the next 4 years to try to explain to you why they couldn't succeed the last 4 years, and promise you they're going to succeed in the next 4 years if you vote for them. So the people play their game every 4 years. We say that the way people should be involved, the oppressed people should be involved in the political problem, is on a constant basis, running the society, not voting for oppressors to run it for them, so that we are building a political party that is going to mobilize and organize the masses of the people to become involved in the transformation of Puerto Rican society. And they say like American society, but whatever. No, but right, we have to be the ones running it, right? Like this is gonna be so pertinent. Like coming up in 2 weeks, we got a white civil war coming. In 2 weeks, we got two sides of white power about to duke it out. One's gonna lose and one's gonna win, and neither one's gonna agree. You all think that, oh, Trump loses, oh no, like it'll be fine. No one's gonna fight back. No, people are gonna fight back. If Biden wins, like people aren't gonna fight back. People will fight back either way. White power is at a clash right now. So instead of getting involved in their games, why don't we get involved in organizing ourselves for liberation and freedom? All right. So let's get our game together, right? And unite and have unity so we can go against this game that they keep putting on us every 4 years, right?
It's propaganda, period.
Yeah, it's propaganda. They keep tricking us thinking that this is something.
Think about the fact, listen, like I took 9 months from May 2019 till March 2020. I needed a break from New York. I needed to be with my family in Puerto Rico. And at this time, Bloomberg is down in the island doing his propaganda. I got an email, and it was basically asking me to participate in one of Bloomberg's commercial, and they laid it out like this: like, we need people who support this idea. He's the only one that has presented a plan for the economy of Puerto Rico. And I of course I said no. I'm like, no, because we've been hearing this for so many years and we're still at the bottom. Yeah. We're not seeing change from these like white gringos coming up here with their propagandas. I'm not seeing anything being done for the people. All I'm seeing is, things that are going to benefit them economically to keep taking from us.
Exactly. The hood looked the same now as it's looked under Obama.
Hello.
Like if you from the hood, don't tell me that your buildings look different today than they did under Obama or under Bush or under Clinton, who was playing the saxophone. You thought that him playing the saxophone on Arsenio Hall was going to make the hood look different? You thought Bush, talking to Kanye, let's talk about Bush was going to make the hood look different. Obama didn't make the hood look different. People still colonized. People still poor. Though people are still suffering around the world at the hands of United States colonialism, right? Like, it's all just like a game. It's just propaganda. They're really just trying to like trick us into thinking like that this is for us, and it's not for us, right? Organization is for us, right? The young lords showed that, hey, we are here for you because we are here to protect you. We are here to organize you for your own freedom.
And
right?
the difference where we see how young lord, the Young Lords Party and the Black Panther movement itself, they were out on the street knocking door by door, connecting with the people. The same thing we do here at Black Hammer, that we actually build connections with people on the street so they can get why we do what we do. And the fact that these politicians, these people from Congress, they come to give you an example, to Puerto Rico to make that propaganda. It's like, but why aren't you not on the street actually hearing from our needs? They don't care about that. They just care about what's going to bring them money and more land and more resources, period.
That's right. No, for real. Like, we just heard about Ice Cube and all that. Like, like all that is basically just like trying to pretend that they're trying to get resources for other people when really it's just people out for themselves. So like our third principle of unity, we believe all the problems the colonized face come from colonialism and the neo-colonial sellouts who live within our colonized nations, right? Those neo-colonial sellouts, they only offer themselves too. And like, we have to make sure that, we are. So when we go to like Puerto Rico, right, we go to Boriken, and we might see Puerto Ricans who might be in charge, right? Representation does not equal freedom, right? And like, we have to make sure that when we see those people, that we make sure that they're working in our interests. They're being a neo-colonial sellout, right? So I want you all who are watching, and all of y'all who are just in your hood, if you see like that nonprofit program who always seems to get a nicer building, like, oh, they just built a new homeless shelter, like, oh, their new office is looking real nice, it's like 5 stories tall, but everything around the hood looks exactly the same. Call them out as a neo-colonial sellout, and don't just do it alone. Call them out as a neo-colonial sellout with people who got your back, and Black Hammer got your back, so we can call them a neo-colonial sellout with you.
Exactly, we got you.
Yeah. So join blackhammer.org/join. If you are in New York, if you're in Chicago, California, Florida, Nigeria, Philippines.
join us. It doesn't matter where you are. Like, we're here to unite and keep bringing awareness and keep being the community that we are, supporting each other. We don't need these colonizers giving us promises and giving us, no, they're going to keep taking and taking and taking. We're the ones who are going to produce and back ourselves up, period.
Yeah, exactly. And we can do it. That's one thing that this work teaches. That's one thing the young lords learned, was that, you know, we're done with just talking. We have to go do something. And when they did something, they learned that they can do it. You don't learn that you can do it by thinking you can. You learn it by doing it, right? That's practice. Practice is what makes you a better revolutionary. Not knowing more, it's doing more that makes you a better revolutionary. All right. So I'm making a call for all of you to do more, whether that is joining a revolutionary organization, joining Black Hammer. One thing I want you to do more is to donate to Hammer City. If you're like, I ain't ready to join an organization yet, but I'm ready to support people who are, donate to Hammer City. Donate to Black Hammer. CashApp, BuildHammerCity. Venmo, BuildHammerCity. GoFundMe.com, BuildHammerCity. One thing I also want you to do is share this video.
Yes.
Share the information. We got the Black Hammer Times, one of the most impressive news sources that colonized people have today. Like, y'all don't even know, these articles are so to the point and talking to us so directly without having to like use like be extra fancy or nothing. And like it's just so readable and so real. Share those Black Hammer Times articles. That's what I want you to do. Stop saying more, start doing more, and we can get free. All right. So, and do more with Black Hammer, because we're clearly that we those people. We those people. So yeah, share the Hammer City poster, share the Cash App and Venmo, GoFundMe. If you can't donate, get someone else who can. I want to see at least 2 donations right now. If you have $5, $1, $10, $50. I know people. Some people be rocking with the $50. I wish I'd be rocking with the $50 like here. Hello. But, you know, I'm colonized. It ain't that easy. But
it's not easy. We still are broke, working our asses off. You feel me?
For real. Colonialism still got us working, but like, support what you can. Let me see. If not, you can also pledge. If you can't donate right now because colonialism do got us working like that, you can pledge $5, pledge $10. I'd like to see a couple donations or pledges right now. If not from yourself, from someone that you know. For instance, me, I'm out here. I'm about to donate $10 to Hammer City. I want that. I want Hammer City to be built. There's all these people be talking on the street who are experiencing homeless right now, evictions, and unemployment is super high right now. Coronavirus is in its second surge. We have the highest. Thank you, Chief Nas.
Yes.
Money on it. Thank you. Zanzi, 5 on Cash App. Thank you. Keep coming in. I know I said 2, but I want more. But yeah, like coronavirus is on a second surge, y'all. We need to protect our people. This money also helps us like build so we can give masks to our people, right? And make sure that our people are safe and have a safe place to go to. Like Wisconsin got the highest numbers. Trump was just in Wisconsin, but it has the highest numbers in the country right now. They're having the highest hospitalizations they've ever had since the pandemic. That means we in it again, y'all. We in it again. We have to protect our people. So join Black Hammer so you can protect our people. Donate to Hammer City. And yeah, like we really got to be here in the spirit of the young lords. Cool. Oh, we got 2 more donations.
Ooh,
okay. Let's see. Can we get 6? Can we get 2 people to give $8? I want 2 people
to
give $8 separately. That's all I need. 2 people to give $8 separately. Those will be my last 2 donations. I promise you, because I want people to make sure that they see Hammer City built. We want to see Hammer City built. So if you got $8 to give or pledge right now, give me that $8. Oh, hey, Ali got 10 on it. All right.
Okay, Ali.
One more. It can be 10. It could be 8. Hey,
one more. Let's go.
But yeah, no, the young lords inspire me, Jorly. Like.
No, and I had the blessing. I'm still maintaining contact with him. I know Felipe Luciano, and let me tell you, the conversations that I have with this man are so inspiring, because we see this young man out in the streets since a young age, fighting the power, fighting these colonizers. The fact that, he did this time his jail, and even with that in his past, he was able to manage to become a lawyer, a poet, a respectable man from the movement and for our people. And to me, it's really, I'm grateful that we had such movement present, because that's what the people from the diaspora needed. It's what we needed, that representation, because who was going to go out on the street and fight the power for us? Who? Not the colonizer.
Yeah. No, it would have to be us. And then once we see leaders who go out there and say, hey, I'm here for you, those people also say, I'm here for you, now you join me, right? So you are representing yourself, that you're advocating for yourself too, right? And I'm not just here to lead you, I'm here to help you lead yourself and to lead others. And real quick, shout out to Comrade Bree, who donated to $8. We made our goal, y'all. Like, you really showed up. You showed up this time. Thank y'all for that. And so, but yeah, like, try to get Felipe Luciano to join Black Hammer. I know he up there in age a little bit, but not that far up. He can join. It don't matter. It don't matter. We all colonized people. That's like our second principle, right? Like, we believe all colonized people are equal, regardless of like age, multiracial or biracial identity, gender, sexual orientation, right? We open for all colonized people, because the only thing that's wrong with us is colonialism. None of those things, being like same gender, loving, gay, that ain't nothing wrong with you. Being biracial, that you got some European blood that invaded your blood, that ain't wrong with you. The only thing wrong with you is colonialism. So join and fix that. If that's the only thing wrong with you, I don't know. Since colonialism is the only thing wrong with me, I want to rip that off and get rid of it, because I'm pretty perfect at it.
Yes, and I want to unite with that, Cheif, because a lot of people, when we think about organizations or movement, we think that we need to come in with a certain knowledge. No, we're out here, we're all educators, we're all teachers, we're all learners at the end of the day. We're here to learn and grow and keep educating together, so we can pay this forward for our people, so we can get our land back, because we don't need their support. They're already, we've never had their support. They take. It's us that we are elevating our people and elevating our community. So please join, don't hesitate, right?
Yeah, join blackhammer.org/join. We'll get our land back. Tune in next Sunday for our next section of the book trap. You can get the PDF through our Black Hammer library at blackhammer.org for the Young Lords reader. And we'll keep going with this and keep learning about the Young Lords. We're going to learn a lot about Puerto Rican colonial history this next part. So that's what we get really into here in the next parts of this book. So, we're going to really learn how colonialism has impacted the beautiful island of Borinquen. All right? So land back, everybody. And we'll see you next Sunday. And donate and join.